Hello everyone, welcome to today's video and we're going to be talking about affiliate marketing website tips. So I'm joined today with Jenny Abuabaya, who is all about affiliate niche sites. And Jenny, do you want to just give yourself a quick introduction?
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Yes, as said, I'm Jenny Abuabaya. So I am the co-founder and current CEO of Clever Touch Marketing, which is based in Egypt. And we're basically an all-in-one SEO agency specifically for affiliate niche sites. So that's all we work with. We just work with clients who either are just starting an affiliate niche site, building them up, or maybe they've built one themselves and it's kind of plateaued. They don't know what they're doing any further, so they'll come to us for help. Or we'll have some clients who are building out full portfolios, so we help manage those, doing basically everything that they need to be successful, essentially.
Great, yeah. So I think, this topic is very, very interesting, especially nowadays where, I've personally seen loads of people starting affiliate marketing websites because they want to branch out their revenue streams. So I think let's jump right into the tips that we've got for people who are making affiliate marketing sites. And the first one is to think like a business. And I think based on what we've discussed off air, creating an affiliate marketing site, it can't just be you create it with the goal of making money, because that's like what kind of business will start out and they'll be like, all right guys, we're going to start a business, our goal is to make money. It's like you when you think about it in that kind of context, you come to realize that affiliate marketing websites need to be thought out in terms of actual objectives. So it can't just be like, oh, we want to make money. It's like, how are we going to do that? Which points in the life cycle essentially of the business are we going to achieve certain things? So Jenny, what could you add to that in terms of what people can do when they're starting off to think more like a business?
Yeah, well, that, to be honest, that's one of the main things that we see where, when someone's built a site themselves and it's not going so well, it's always because there's not been that thought process long term, which, I mean, to me, it's quite astounding really, because obviously it is a business. That's your goal, is to run it as a business essentially, even if it's kind of like a side hustle for some people initially. Most people want to move away from their full-time job or whatever and have that as their primary business. But it's quite strange that like they don't tend to think about it in the same way you would any other business. So a lot of time, obviously the main thought is kind of on SEO and I need to do all this, but they're not actually thinking about where you would start in terms of where you would start with any other business. So obviously setting up your website essentially for the visitors that are going to come to your site rather than for Google, for example. We see all the time where people have done all the work on the SEO side, which is great, and then they're getting visitors to their site, but they're not making any money because obviously people don't like the way it looks. It looks unprofessional. It hasn't been finished a lot of the time. We see a lot of these issues, and even things like not setting up any social media, which is something you would as a normal business, if you were running a hairdresser's or a dance studio or something like this, one of the first things you would do is set up your social media, make sure you had a full about page, who you are, trying to impress your potential site visitors, where that kind of thought doesn't really seem to go into it with affiliate niche sites a lot of the time, which is where they tend to kind of fall down once they get to that point of they're getting website traffic, they've got their keywords, they're getting that kind of click-through rate, but then people are landing on the site and what's this, they're gone. Basically.
Yeah, there's so many implications, but I think for this point as well, it's about trying to think more like how a real business would function. So and that's essentially what you do when you're trying to plan out your activities. And I think that's obviously the first and probably the most important thing as well, having that plan. But let's move on to the second tip that we got, is on the same kind of subject about doing long-term planning while remaining flexible. So Jenny, what would you say that kind of entails, how you would do that whilst remaining flexible?
Well, I mean, for me, the first thing that we always do if we're building a site for a client or, or as a recommendation for anyone, is doing a huge, and I mean huge, batch of keyword research. So we find a lot of the time that, when people come to us, they've either done no keyword research, so they've bought a domain, they've just decided like, I'm going to do this niche, and they've bought a domain without doing any keyword research whatsoever, or they've done, say, enough for the first 20,000 words of articles that they want to get out. But obviously, in the beginning, doing that huge keyword research as part of your niche researches, which you should be doing, is massively important, because how do you know you're going to have enough keywords for longevity? Obviously, if you're thinking like a business and you are thinking long term, you should have goals of what your idea of success is. So that might be, the first year you're earning back the money you've spent to build the site. The next year you get so much traffic. The year after you want to flip the site. But you have to know that there's viable opportunity within the niche to be able to do that long term. So obviously we always tend to we'll do anything up to 1 million words worth of keywords, just to see, is there room for growth? If you're doing something like, like quite a popular niche where there's a lot of competition, is there an opportunity to maybe kind of niche down into one area and then expand that long term so you can continue that growth? Is there enough kind of money keywords if your focus is going to be, say, like Amazon affiliate? Is there actually keywords where you can continue to do that and continue to make money? And obviously you need to have that initial kind of long-term plan, but you have to remain flexible, because obviously things are changing all of the time. When what is going to be your keywords this month might change next month, so you have to keep that flexibility. And obviously you're not going to do that kind of huge batch of keyword research and then never do keyword research again, but you need to have both aspects, in terms of you need that long-term plan to say, right, this is a great niche, I can definitely do this is, there's opportunities I can even things like looking at different types of keywords in terms of, can I move away from affiliate? Maybe I want to do digital products or something like this. Is there going to be opportunity for that growth? And then, like I say, on a shorter term basis, just kind of reevaluating that constantly and remaining flexible. I mean, I think the last year has been the perfect example of that, where, search intent totally changed once COVID hit. So we deal with a lot of fitness sites, for example. So, your keywords now, there's a sudden focus on, you want to be doing at-home workouts and things like this. And also, even with, the change in the Amazon commission, so people are looking to move away from Amazon. So you have to keep that flexibility to be able to kind of change when you need to and move with what's working at the time. But at the same time, in the very beginning, certainly, you need to have that long-term vision and goal. Otherwise, that's where you're going to hit a point where, you're going to build this, spend the money building the site and getting that first batch of content on there. You're going to do outreach and link building, and then you're going to get to a point of, where do I go now? There's nothing to do. And we've seen that quite a few times where, people have even bought a domain without looking into the possibility of whether it's a viable niche long term. And when we've done the keyword research, we've been like, unless you're willing to expand outside of that niche past your first, not even say 100,000 words worth of content, that's going to be the end. That's it. So just having that kind of that vision longer term is what you need if you're going to make it to be a success. Certainly, if it's something that you want to do, you want to build it as a brand, you want to be, the next health line or something, for example, you have to have that kind of forethought.
Yeah, you covered quite a lot of good points, actually, and something that I would add as well is, especially considering what's happened last year with the pandemic and stuff, I would kind of suggest to keep your emotions out of it sometimes, because I feel like, you have to have lots of conviction when it comes to affiliate marketing sites. So, the more emotionally attached you might get to a site, the easier it might be for your opinions to be skewed at certain times. So, for example, if you were running or started, for example, an affiliate site last year in February about the travel niche, and then the pandemic hits and you're like, okay, maybe we'll wait out. But, if you're emotionally attached to that site, you might think, okay, well, I can wait it out and plan some content, But then in reality, what we're seeing is that, traffic for travel has gone down, and you're not going to make any money. And so, like, what would be the best kind of case scenario to do? Would you exit there? I would say so, right? But I think as well, it's that being flexible, but also trying to avoid being emotionally attached to any affiliate site that you have, because at the end of the day, it is a business. And I think there's a quote from I can't remember who said the quote, but it's like they say, I love business, but I don't love my business. So it's like, you need to know when is a good time to make certain decisions. And I think being flexible and thinking long term for the potential for change is very important to succeed. So I think that's a very important point there as well. But let's move on to the third one, which is more kind of SEO focused, but it also covers other types of aspects. So what we're saying essentially is don't just focus on building websites for the spider, so for the search engines. And I feel like this is something that I've been shouting for a long time, and people still do just focus on the search engines here. But when you consider an affiliate site and you think, well, what's the end goal here? And certain sites, they will, their goal is not going to be to make money through commissions on selling products. They might be just to generate traffic or generate leads, etc., etc. The problem you have with affiliate sites when you're trying to build a website for search engines first is that it might rank, but if there are other aspects of a site that don't work, for example, your design is terrible, there's no UX there, it's harder to navigate through, there's limited calls to actions, are you going to make money? Probably not, right? And so, this is just something that it's a pet peeve, because you see in so many websites where all they do is just focus on the keywords. They're focusing on how they can make their site better accessible for search engines, but they don't focus about the users. So Jenny, what do you think about this point, and what do you think people should do when they're starting off if they want to not just focus on the search engines?
Yeah, that's one of my pet peeves as well. It's something that I see all the time, and actually it's one thing that usually when people come to us kind of to evaluate their site, when they'll say, I'm ranking for keywords and I'm getting traffic, but I'm not making any money. I don't know, maybe I need more backlinks or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, it's actually nothing to do with the SEO, and it's all to do with UX and CRO. And you'll go to visit a site and it'll, it looks like kind of someone's used basic Elementor to kind of, drag and drop a few things. They haven't even put like an avatar over the top of the blog articles and things like this, as if it's half finished. And I think what people tend to forget is, I know a lot of people who start affiliate sites. I mean, a lot of the people we work with are doing, kind of courses that are available to learn the SEO side of affiliate marketing. But you've got to remember that your kind of demographic is not an SEO. They don't, your demographic is, Joe Blogs down the street who doesn't understand how SEO works. And you've got to remember that for most people, seeing the quality of design and the quality of the user experience of the website is what brings trust. So that's what's going to make someone think, you're, even if they've never heard of your site before, oh, well, there must be a big name. Look at, the quality of the site. And this is what's going to bring as well, is going to bring return readership. So if you're trying to be a brand, that's what you need. You don't want to be building kind of one-time traffic. That's essentially, it's just a vanity number if that traffic's not doing anything for your site. If you're not making any money from it, and it's just a case of those people are, clicking through from Google, landing on your site and disappearing and never coming back, it doesn't matter what that number of traffic is if it's not working for you. So I think that has to be the first thought, and that's what we try to implement with all the clients we work with where we build the site. So the focus is always the design elements, what the site looks like, the user experience, making sure, I mean, there's so many sites that I see that don't even have call to actions anyway, and I'm like, how do you expect to make any money if you're not telling people where to go and things like this? So that's always the focus with us, and then we'll work on the SEO, because at the end of the day, like, yes, of course, it's hugely important. You need to have that visibility in the SERP for people to come through to your site, but you need to make sure that first and foremost your site is ready for those visitors when you do start getting those visitors, not the other way around, which is what I tend to see, where people are just so quick to, they're just going to throw up a skeleton site and they're so quick to get those keywords, get ranking and everything like that, but then it's not going to convert in anything, or people are going to come back. And there's so many sites that we'll see that just look like spam to a normal person. Like, sure, I look at it and I know you're full of display ads and I know the reason you've got them and so on and so forth, but like I say, the general public, if you like, is just like, oh, this looks spammy, I'm just gonna go, so it's, you've got to think about, again, this is bringing in your kind of long-term goals. Like, is if you want to build something up and you want to be a brand and you want to build that kind of, to be an authority within your niche, you're not going to do that if your website is not user friendly, essentially is not responsive, doesn't look good. This is, you're never going to see something like Apple, for example, with a crappy website. Like, if you have to kind of swap the way around that people think. Instead of thinking SEO first, like I say, make sure your website is 100% ready for those visitors, and then start getting visitors to your site. And that's when you can see that kind of that quick pace of you're getting traffic and that's making money straight away. This is when we see, certainly with that quick turnaround, which it's just, I keep having to scream it at people all of the time because so many people don't think about it. But honestly, that's one of the things as well we tend to say when people come to them and they're finding that they can't kind of work out why they're not making money, or maybe they're making, they think it's kind of all right, they know something's wrong, but I'm making money. So, and this is actually what kind of frustrates me more than anything when I tend to review the sites and I see these problems, because I just think, the potential there, how much money could you be making if all of these things were how they should be, essentially. So you've got to think of things like that first. Use something like Microsoft Clarity, which is a free tool, and you can see exactly how your site's being used. It's going to record what your users are doing and give you insight as to whether people are clicking on things and they're not working that you had no idea about before. Just try to, like I say, obviously put that forethought into making the experience for the user the first priority, because as well as we go forward, we've seen already that with kind of every Google algorithm update, user experience is becoming more and more important. We're seeing that as we go on, and I think it's only going to be a matter of time until it's not just about site speed, it's not just about meeting the search intent in your content. It's going to get more and more advanced, and we're going to see those kind of sites that haven't had much effort put into them, have just been thrown up, are going to slowly start to kind of fall down the slope, I think, as time goes on.
Yeah, there's definitely ways for Google to see that even now. Like they have so much data about sites and how people access websites, how people engage with websites. So yeah, I think it's a matter of time until that becomes a definitive kind of problem for people who haven't put that thought into their site. So definitely focus on these things like user experience, conversion rate optimization, all of these things that will make your site more attractive to somebody going it, so that they can actually achieve the purpose that you want them to achieve. So that's a very important point. So let's move on to the fourth tip that we've got in terms of creating affiliate marketing websites, and that's the general housekeeping. And this is, Jenny, as you were saying off air, you're saying this is more important than before. So could you explain just what the general housekeeping is and why it's so important now?
Well, I think especially in the kind of the last year that we've had, because obviously so many people are in lockdown all over the world and haven't been able to do their jobs and things like this, more and more people are trying to get more disposable income and work online. And one of the easier ways to do that is to start an affiliate site. So obviously the market is going to become more and more saturated. So it's a case of, there's going to be so much more competition out there. So whether it be you're starting a new site or, you've already got an existing site, just keeping up with those small things in SEO that people don't really think about. And you'll have SEOs that'll say it's not really important for your meta descriptions, your alt text and all this kind of general housekeeping things. But as the market becomes more and more saturated, those kind of fixing those small issues and making sure they don't creep in as you're adding new content all the time. And it's very easy to, once you've built your site initially, you've got all the SEO sorted, great, it's fantastic. But it's very easy to let those things slip as you're adding new things in. You're adding in new pages, you're adding in new silos and stuff like this. And obviously it'll come to the point where, because there is so much competition, that those small things can make the difference between one site to another. If one site is 100%, everything is spot on, and your site, that's great, but there's these little things that you kind of let slip, that can be the difference when there's that much competition out there, essentially. So that's something that we see all the time. Is just it's just been a case of general housekeeping. There's not huge technical issues on a site letting it down, but it's just all of these things have built up over time. And you see, as soon as these things are fixed, you can get a jump of kind of 20-30% in traffic just from fixing these small issues. So it's just keeping those kind of good habits up with that kind of general housekeeping in terms of SEO, to make sure that you're on kind of the trajectory you want to keep going on and not let it slip behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when you consider the reasons as well for starting affiliate sites, and you got to think to yourself, well, if I'm doing this, do I want to be the best site in my niche? And I think if the answer is no, then you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. I feel like starting affiliate sites, you want to get to that 100%. And when you think of especially in much more competitive niches, if there's sites that are doing certain things that you're not, well, then they're beating you in one way or another. And I think, like you were saying before, if you were to kind of have two websites side by side and they're almost identical, but then one of the sites, say, has filled out, let's say, custom meta descriptions, which are more enticing to get clicks on the SERP, and you don't, yours are just generic pulled in from Google, or you haven't set one, whatever, then they're going to get the traffic at the end of the day. So I think, it's just general housekeeping, and just trying to think of always how you can make improvements to the site, because there's always going to be something to improve. So that's very important as well, and any kind of low-hanging fruits that you're able to quickly and easily change, but can do a world of good for you as well. So that's very important. But let's move on to the final tip, which is about link building, but it's being smart about link building. And there was something that you were mentioning, Jenny, about white hat techniques that might not be right for your site. So could you explain a bit about an example of what that could be, and why it's important to be smart about how you approach link building for an affiliate site?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody knows that link building is important. I don't think the kind of debate of whether content alone can rank a site will ever go away, but I think most of us have established that link building is important. But it's important to remember that any aspect of SEO is not a one-size-fits-all thing. It doesn't matter if you do a course and you learn how to do something, and most of these things are great, but there's still not one size fits all. All of these techniques might work, but whether it's going to work for you at this point for your site and where your site is at is a totally different question. And we see people who have built brand new sites all the time, and they come to us and they want to do something like like a skyscraper campaign. So they want to basically find a competing piece of content, find all the sites that are linking to that, and reach out to them all and try and kind of steal those links, essentially, which it can be a great technique and it can work. But you have to think like Google, because the term kind of white hat is thrown around a lot, but when we look at it from Google's eyes, any kind of deliberate outreach is essentially, it's not white hat. Like in Google's eyes, the only way you should be getting links is if I'm writing a piece of content, I come across your site as I'm doing my research, and I link back to it to show where I've getting that information from. That's how links essentially, from Google's point of view, should be built. There shouldn't be any kind of incentive there, and you have to remember that. So obviously, if you've got a brand new site and you're getting traffic of kind of 200 monthly visits, it's not reasonable to think that 600 websites are suddenly going to link back to your site, because you're not even getting that much traffic a month. And I don't think everybody always kind of thinks about that in that perspective, and to me, that, you know, that can be kind of a huge red flag. If you're suddenly getting more links than you've even got traffic, then that doesn't make sense. And the same with, you know, we do all kinds of link building. We do kind of niche edits where we're going to, you know, existing content and asking the webmaster to kind of put links in, or to, you know, if a link's kind of already a 404, to swap that out for a relevant piece of content we've got for a client. But again, even with those techniques, anything like that with like a niche edit or maybe it's a 404, you've got to remember that it's not really something that happens all the time for an existing piece of content to be updated. You know, maybe they're going to update it once a year, or if what they're talking about is kind of, you know, way out of date or whatever. But it's not something that's going to happen all the time. So especially with something like a skyscraper, or if you want to do niche edits on a big scale, it's not really kind of realistic to think that a load of sites would suddenly change their existing content to link back to your brand new website that's got 3 pieces of content on it. It's not really feasible. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with these techniques when your site is at the right place, obviously, for them to be done. So it's just thinking about, again, it comes into that whole thing of thinking long term, you know. So it's just thinking about what's going to be the right steps for me now. Should I start with, like, we do HARO management, for example, where, you know, we've got a dedicated VA that reaches out to HARO emails every single day on behalf of the client. We always recommend to start with that, because this is a much more natural way of kind of building those links through. Maybe starting with some guest posts, then you can be looking, once you're getting traffic, once you've got, you know, sort of a realistic amount of traffic, to start doing something like a skyscraper. Maybe even start with a kind of mini version where you're only reaching out to, you know, 100 sites, for example, rather than coming and wanting to reach out to thousands of websites at a time. So obviously it's really important, but it's just having that kind of forethought to think, right, what is realistically, what is going to be the best plan in terms of link building for me? Because obviously, although all of these techniques are considered white hat, that doesn't mean that they can't throw up red flags for your site if your site's not in a position where they should be gaining those kind of links at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some very, very interesting points that you're mentioning. I think the kind of key thing, I think, for people who are starting is the point about think how much traffic you actually have, and then don't build more links that seems natural, I suppose. So I don't know if it's worth even thinking about it as a percent. So maybe even, you know, building links, or maybe the amount of links per month should be maybe 5% of the overall traffic you get per month. Because yeah, if you're getting only 100 visits a month and you suddenly get 30 links in a month, that percentage is so, it's so unnatural. It doesn't really happen. And Google will know exactly how people are changing their content. They see it all the time as content's being crawled. They know when links have been added, when they haven't. If it's a new piece of content, that's obviously better for a new site, because that's what makes the most sense based on what you were saying before about it's quite unlikely that people do regularly go out and update old content. So just being smart about how you want to approach link building when you're starting out, and then as you get more traffic, you can start delving into different techniques. But I think that's very important, and definitely try and be smarter about how you do link building, because you never know, there might be any future core update or something like that from Google that essentially tanks your site if you've been using the wrong approach to something like link building. So that's pretty much all the kind of 5 affiliate marketing website tips that we've got. Jenny, thanks so much for coming on. Can you tell just people where to find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, like I said, I am currently COO at Clever Touch Marketing, so you can hop over to our website, clevertouchmarketing.com, if you're building a new affiliate site, or you're stuck with a current affiliate site and you want a little bit of help figuring out where to go. We're always happy to help. But thank you very much for having us on.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next video. Cheers. Hey, you've reached the end of this video, but don't worry, there's plenty more great content that you can watch right now. All you have to do is click one of the 2 video links on the left side of the screen. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to never miss out on future uploads.